Welcome. From Studio 226 in Orlando, Florida, this is Aging Smarter. Aging Smarter is a podcast focused on making it easier to grow older and to prepare for the future, no matter what your age is right now. We aim to educate, to entertain, prepare, and amaze you about your life's journey, regardless of your age. I'm your host, retired former circuit judge Jose R. Rodriguez. Today, we have invited to join us Katina Williams. Let me tell you a little bit about her. She's a professional guardian, an examining committee member, a certified Supreme Court family mediator, a certified elder caring coordinator, and in a previous life, she was an Orlando police sergeant and a combat medic in the Army. She has a master's degree in public administration, and she is here to tell us all about her experiences in the field of guardianship. I know Katina from the time that I was on the bench. She is an awesome individual and a tremendous knowledgeable person when it comes to guardianship. Let me just point out that Katina also teaches a 40-hour course required to be taken by those wishing to become professional guardians. So she's quite knowledgeable about guardianship and how to avoid losing rights due to incapacity. Welcome, Katina. Tell us a little bit about yourself that I may not have talked about, and tell us about your guardianship experience.
I think you covered it all, but I definitely appreciate the invite. I started guardianship in 2011. So at that time, I was still currently working with the city of Orlando. I was preparing to make the transition from retiring from 20 years with the city of Orlando and transitioning into guardianship.
20 years with the city of Orlando. You must have started when you were 12.
Exactly. Exactly.
But that's quite a public an amount of public service, and then you transition into more public service.
Yes. So I started with the military. So I did 8 years in the United States military in the Army as a combat medic.
Okay, I don't do math, but that tells me you
I've
start you
been
had
busy.
yeah, you've been busy. So tell me about that experience. That's awesome.
So combat medic was great. I was 17, got out of high school, went straight into the military. And if you remember the show MASH, that's
Yeah.
what I served. I served in a MASH unit. So we were, as a combat medic, you are the first line of medical support for your soldiers that get injured. You triage them, you give them medical treatment, and you either send them back into the field or you send them back home for additional medical treatment.
I bet you that experience really worked well when it came to, dealing with folks, that you would have been a guardian of the person because you would have been responsible for making sure that their doctor's appointments, their medical health was up to date. I would have wanted you as my professional guardian if I had lost my capacity because, again, of your experience. If you have that experience in trauma, oof, it's a cinch. I shouldn't say that because it's not a cinch, but wow, what how awesome. So tell me more. How did you transition after that?
So transition from exiting the military, I did a couple of years in the reserve, but I've always had about 3 jobs at one time.
Okay.
So left that military and then for about 15 years, I worked for the Agency for Persons with Disabilities. So I did supported living and supported employment. So in that aspect, you have people who have a development disability by statute. They're already vetted. I don't do anything with that, but they would like to live in the community as opposed to institutionalized housing, like a group home. So we train them and we taught them stranger danger. So very much similar to what we do in guardianship of the person with regards to social aspects, one of the rights that is delegated to a guardian. So I did that for about 15 years.
Wow. And then
And then one of my cases through APD, her father
the
passed
Agency for
away.
Persons with
Yes,
Disability.
the Agency for Persons with Disabilities. Her father passed away. And of course, they started fighting over the money. So her
Really?
siblings,
You think that happened?
really, of course. So they were fighting over the money. And I had to go and figure out what to do with this money because we were not going to give it to the family. The dad left it to my person. She was disabled, but of course, dealing with Social Security,
You mean by my person, you don't mean
my
by you yourself, but the person that you were responsible for taking care
through
of.
APD, yes, Agency for Persons with Disabilities.
That was that was to be the recipient of the funds.
Yes,
That everybody else was, well, playing tug of war with someone else's money.
yes. So they were telling me, and you know a little bit about Social Security in that era. So I went to Aged. I know it stands for something, but Aged, the company.
Right.
And I met with Nick Barton. He was the person who was going to set up her special needs trust. And lo and behold, he educated me on professional guardianship.
There you go.
And that was my transition. He was like, "You seem so organized. You seem so blah. That job would be great." And I looked into that. And shortly thereafter, maybe 5, 6 years later, professional guardian. Here I am.
And how did you go about becoming a professional guardian? What are the requirements?
So the requirements are not as difficult as you may think. It does not require a formal education. You just have to pass the 40-hour course. It's a it's not an easy course. It's really 40 hours. It's intense where you have to understand the statutes and applying what you've learned so that you can take the state competency test.
And what's the state competency test about?
The state competency test right now has about a 75% first time failure. It
So you really got to knuckle down, and get it done. Learn.
Well, you have to think if, as a professional guardian, you get trained first, and soon as you pass the test and get licensed and get your number from the Office of Public and Professional Guardians, you go to work. So that test has to prove, yes, you know what you are doing. It's not a trick test, but if you know the statutes, if you understand the questions that you're going to see, then you will pass.
Do they ask you a lot of questions about, say, things that are like common sense, about how you would perform duties for anyone that's, say, sick or that's not doesn't have full capacity?
It's definitely more to the statute. We have to teach you the statutes so that you know what you're seeing when you walk into the case.
So this would be chapter 744 and chapter 393. 744 when you're dealing with incapacity, and 393 when you're dealing with disability. And you have to be able to differentiate between when somebody has to have a guardianship because they meet the qualifications for disability and a guardian advocacy and guardian of the person or of the property. Am I
You
getting
are
that right?
correct. And one more we'll add is 394 for mental illness, and that's Baker Act.
Right, that's a
So
Baker
we
Act.
have those on our caseload as well.
Because Baker Act basically deals with mental illness, and mental illness is not dementia.
Correct.
Dementia, they're completely
Very
different.
different.
Okay, cool. So tell me more how you go about, how is it that you get clients?
So once you successfully pass the state test, and then you register with the Office of Public and Professional Guardian, that's up in Tallahassee. They do your background screening. This background is
So they check you out.
yes, they do. And they do a level 2 background.
Oh, what's that?
So the difference in your traditional background screening, if you're going to get a job, it's we call level 1. Level 2 deals with what we call good moral conduct. So there are a list of not necessarily felons, but they are character questions. So they may, if you've petty theft, fraud, things that deals with your integrity, that is what's included on a level 2.
In other words, what they would used to call crimes of moral turpitude.
Exactly.
That's a big, long word, isn't it?
That it is.
But you know what? They're significant. I looked at the statute, and the statute that deals with the disqualification of individuals to become professional guardians is longer than my arm and the other arm as well.
Yes.
And what the statute does is it just gives you numbers, and then you've got to look up to see what the numbers are. And it is just a vast number of disqualifiers
Yes.
because they've got to make sure that the professional guardians are going to be, well, hopefully above board.
Yes, and the incapacitated person is entitled to somebody who is well trained that can handle all of the different dynamics that deals with guardianship,
Including family.
including family.
Um, let's talk about, again, professional guardianship. And I mean, we talked that we need a 40-hour course. We need to pass the statewide exam. What else do you have uh, to put up any kind of a bond?
Yes. So with the packet that you send to Tallahassee, it'll include your fingerprints. You'll do your level 2. It'll include an application where on the application you tell Tallahassee, OPPG, Office of Public and
Mm.
Professional Guardians, where you would like to work. So I can decide what counties, what circuit I want to serve in. And then I'll send my credit report. It's not
Because not only do they do a background check for criminal record, they also take a look and see how many bankruptcies, if any, you've had.
If you've had any in the last 5 years, they're not gonna certify you, give you a license. They don't necessarily look for a score. We call it credit worthiness because you have to get approved and maintain the bond so that you can get surety bonds for your ward's assets. We'll get a little into that. So you have to have at least a bond covering you. It's kind of similar to errors and omissions for business owners. So you'll get a blanket bond to $50,000.
And that's required.
That is required.
What kind of experience do professional guardians have to have or build? Do they have to have three individuals at least?
If you have served at least a guardian, you may be a family guardian at this time because the difference between a family guardian and a professional guardians get trained first, then we get appointed. Family guardians get appointed first, then they get trained. So you,
But the training is quite different.
oh gosh, yes,
The family guardians do not have the breadth of teaching that someone like you teaching the 40-hour course would give those hoping to be professional guardians.
yes. So the family guardian only needs 8 hours. We call you
Compared to
family
80, wow.
compared to 40. Yes, definitely.
Oh, 40.
Yes. But the family garden, we call it family. You don't have to be family. You can be a friend, you can be a relative, because there are some people who are closer to their best friend than they
But
are their sister. But
it's a
we
way
call
to
it
define or to differentiate between
correct.
professional and not professional.
Correct.
So
So the family guardian, so they get appointed first. They have an 8-hour training. I teach the 8-hour training up in Volusia County. Nowhere near, as you're saying, we give them just the surface of the statutes, make sure they don't violate this, give them their reporting periods, things
right.
of that nature. And sometimes we do 4 hours. So many people don't know, even if you are the parent of your own child, but Florida has a statute that reads if your child gets an inheritance, somebody died and left them, or a settlement, car crash, you hired a law firm to give them money, the natural parent has to become the guardian of the property if the child is going to receive more than $15,000. So they need a 4-hour course. So they have 4 and 8-hour courses for the family, and they just have to get the training within 4 months of being appointed.
It's my understanding that the minor guardianship requirements started to flow from what happened to Jackie Coogan and Shirley Temple way, way back in the last century. Shirley Temple's parents used all of the money that she made from the Good Ship, Lollipop, and all of those. And I read somewhere that they were looking at about $27 million in equivalent money back when Charlie Chaplin, that silent, absolute wonder, took Jackie Coogan under his breath, under his wings, and in the silent movies. And the last time that we were able to know what Jackie Coogan was doing after Our Gang was Uncle Fester. If it hadn't been for Uncle Fester, all of the money that he made as a
Exactly.
child was spent by the parents. And I think that's what gave rise to minors having guardianship over the funds that are given to them, so that there's a specific point at which you understand. And I remember giving lectures to the parents that this is not your money. This
Yes.
is, and again, talking to them about Shirley Temple and Jackie Coogan. And I remember having a, a picture of Jackie Coogan as Uncle Fester with a light bulb in his mouth, because the only way that sometimes parents get it is by, again, letting them know that if they touch it, they touch that money, it's not theirs.
Exactly. Because Florida already requires parents to take care of their children.
Yes.
Mhm.
In other words, that
That money.
money is the
Correct.
child. It is not for child support.
Correct.
The support duty is on the parent.
Yes.
Good, good, good. So what other, I mean, so you teach the 40-hour course, you teach the 8-hour course, you teach the 4-hour course. It's awesome.
I teach the 4-hour course for initial exam committees. So anyone looking to serve on the examining committee, so
That's another
that's another
course that
class
you do.
I teach. So I'm also an examiner that does the assessments for, at that time we call them the alleged incapacitated person.
Right.
But I also teach the initial class for those looking to serve as examining committee members.
And what does an examining committee member do and look for?
So once anyone can file a petition if they find an elder or someone who needs help. If you feel that this person is a vulnerable adult and they need someone to help keep them safe, anyone can file a petition. So after they file the petition with an attorney, of course, the
And you
judge,
mean attorney, of course, because it's required.
of course, yes, it
It's
is
required.
required. Yes. So you have to, there's three elements before you can file the petition. You have to first find a person willing to sign the petition. It can't be anonymous, has to be verified. You have to provide next of kin. There's a litany of things that you have to put in the petition. And then that person, the petitioner is what we call them, they have to go and find an attorney willing to file it and represent them. So sometimes they may not want to represent that actual family member. And then they together will find a proposed guardian. So it's a threefold kind of thing that has to happen in the backdrop before the petition comes to the courts. Once it's filed, the petition to determine
Incapacity.
incapacity,
And that's filed in the mental health division.
correct. Because at that point, the alleged incapacitated person has not been deemed. Sometimes it's spiteful, sometimes it's family dynamics. So it stays confidential. So it is in the mental health section until they're actually deemed incapacitated. And then they'll transition to
And how
guardianship.
is it that the examining committee goes about its job to determine whether the individual has capacity or is incapacitated?
So once the petition is filed, the judge has 5 days to appoint a 3-member team. So it's majority rules. If two of the examiners say yes, they need a guardian, they'll get one. If two of the examiners say nope, they won't get one. So majority rules.
And then that
So
petition gets dismissed because
that
the
petition
person
gets
is
dismissed.
not incapacitated.
Right. So we use 3 independent, well-trained examiners who go out. They don't have any reason to have a preference on either side. They just go and they meet with the person, and assess them. So the team of 3, one of them must be a medical doctor or a psychiatrist. We have to ensure we just don't have a misdiagnosed medical condition that we're deeming somebody incapacitated for.
In other words, that it reflects like um, lack of capacity when in fact it's not, because it's something,
Biggest one is dehydration.
dehydration
Yes,
or a UTI, which
UTI,
may also
severe
manifest.
aggressive.
Yeah.
Mhm. And then the next section of the 3-member, there's whole section, mental health, licensed clinical social worker. The list specifically titles in the statute what they can be. And then a lot of counties allow for, like my positions, is what we call the lay member or functional. through skills, experience, our ability to see a problem, assess a problem, and fix it. If you can present that, you have that in your background, your circuit judge will approve for you to serve in that third capacity as a lay member.
Well, I think so long as your background allows the court to reach the decision that by a not by a preponderance, but by clear and convincing evidence
Definitely.
that the individual is incapacitated, so long as you have that instruction and that knowledge as a combat medic, hey, I'm telling you, you've seen it, you know it. y- You would you make an awesome examining committee member, as I'm sure also a teacher, because I've seen you in some of your courses, and you know your stuff. You know your
I
stuff.
try. I definitely I am one of those who we were bringing out guardians that just were barely making it. And I'm one of those, if you see the problem, go help fix the problem. If you want it to look different, then you need to be a part of changing that. So I was recommended by my judge at the time to teach the professional guardian course up in Tallahassee.
Oh
So,
my dad,
oh my gosh, I wonder who that is, Judge.
yeah. Well, when you see talent, you have to spread it around. Um, well, I'll tell you what. Um, at this point, I think that we are at a point where we're going to continue this. This we'll call um, the ABCs of professional guardianship. And what we'll do is we'll have a second episode and we'll call it the XYZ, where we're going to talk about some additional types of dispute resolution dealing with guardianship. So at this point, let me also remind you that you need to like and subscribe. Also, Katina is, I hope that your future is a bright one and that you wind up, again, continuing to assist individuals in their education to become family guardians, to become professional guardians, to become examining committee members. Um, Join us once again during our next episode of Aging Smarter from Studio 226 in Orlando, Florida. Let me not forget, this podcast would not be possible without the assistance of our showrunner and our absolute cameraman, director, and guy Friday every day of the week, Art
Definitely.
Miles. Thank you, Art. The information provided in this podcast is for informational purposes only and does not constitute legal advice. You should consult with your attorney to discuss your specific situation. Enjoying our conversation? There's more. In our next episode, we discuss elder caring coordination and other tools used by professional guardians, attorneys, and judges. Don't miss out. Check it out.